Perhaps DAPI has enlightened people enough to look into the person and to see what that person can be rather than what that person is.
I very honestly, naively went into the DAPI event thinking that the organization would embrace it and think that this was a valuable use of time.
The same issues that existed years ago are still existing today. So race is still an issue with diversity, but also keep in mind that diversity just doesn't center around race. It centers around classism, ageism, gender.
What we are measuring is retention and utilization, and everybody agrees with that.
Okay.
I haven't seen a lot of resistance. The numbers question comes sometimes explicit or implicit when it comes to promotions. Like, do you guys have quota or what have you? And the answer is no.
The one thing I like about the checking out fantasies notion is it just cuts to the chase. You know, and you just, you know, you can just resolve so much that could just snowball into a big mess, and you can't figure out where it all started.
When we can build strong relationships and overcome the barriers, then as an individual, I'm more effective and you're more effective. And once we're more effective, then our productivity just starts to soar. The barriers go away. We can do more work in less time, have much more creative ideas because we feel so much freer to think and be who we are.
You just kind of look at your environment where you can make a difference, you know, and try to develop plans around how you can help someone.
I don't see how you can do team building without including the component of diversity or multiculturalism. I mean, they go hand in hand with one another.
Diversity involves all of us as individuals. We're all different, and it doesn't single out any one particular group.
I like to liken it to what Dr. Deming said. He had a very famous phrase. He said, "Seek first to understand." And it applies to almost everything, and it really applies to the subject we're talking about. In diversity, you have to first understand the other person, the person you're dealing with. Whether they're an Italian, or a woman, or a black, or a white male, it's no different. And if you really do understand each other, great things can happen.
Hello, I'm Bob Keene. I would like to provide background and introduction to the program you are about to see. In 1994, we in Customer Services Integrated Logistics recognized the need to make an intervention if we, as an organization and as individuals, were going to increase diversity awareness and translate these learnings into action. It was determined that the best way to accomplish this was to conduct a Diversity Action Planning Initiative, or DAPI for short, and to formally link diversity to the organization's business objectives and to each individual's W&DP through specific action plans. Through the leadership of a diversity learning event steering team chartered by the Human Resources Horizontal Process Team, we selected 2 consultants to help us develop this first-of-a-kind learning event. Specifically, Dr. Valerie Batts and Visions, Inc., and Mr. Joe Steele brought their expertise and techniques to bear on this formidable task. Over 700 personnel from Customer Services Integrated Logistics have participated in the Diversity Action Planning Initiative. The DAPI design had the following goals. Assess where each Customer Service Integrated Logistics employee was in terms of their understanding of and commitment to diversity. Broaden our understanding of what diversity is by defining and reviewing modernisms and their impact on the work environment. Clarify how issues of diversity exist for each individual at the personal, interpersonal, institutional, and cultural levels. Highlight the importance of creating and building successful relationships across diverse groups, as well as recommendations for handling conflict situations. Increase our ability to talk about our feelings regarding diversity issues and building relationships. Ensure all Customer Service Integrated Logistics personnel gain an understanding of the following: the business linkage to diversity. Address the question of what's in it for me regarding diversity. Leadership's role in diversity. Personal actions that each individual can take to make progress in the area of diversity for their W&DP. This tape consists of excerpts from post-DAPI interviews of an internal P&G consultant and a number of customer services integrated logistics employees who participated in one or more of the Diversity Action Planning Initiative sessions. The interviews were conducted by the external consultants we utilized in this initiative, Dr. Valerie Batts of Visions, Inc., and Mr. Joe Steele. I believe this tape in itself is a learning event about what individuals and the organization gain from this experience. Please sit back and listen to how we are bringing diversity alive in customer services integrated logistics.
We were looking for something that we could do as individuals and also do as an organization, because the way that we formatted this training is that we took an organization of 700 people and we divided it into 10 groups and roughly did about 70 individuals per session. So we had a massive effort, if you will, to have to coordinate. We wanted to ensure that there were learnings that were the same across the groups, but also we wanted the learning to meet people where they were at, not to preach or teach or lay on to individuals. The objective of this tape is to have it as a vehicle to onboard people who are new to the organization around what the Diversity Action Planning Initiative event was, that it is a process. It sparked new learning with regard to diversity. We want the tape to be a benchmark for where the organization is at this point in time with regard to diversity. We also want this tape to really speak to people around what processes were used and what the learnings were as a result of doing the initiative. And then finally, I think there are some application possibilities or reapplication of this approach to other parts of the company.
It seems to me you've got to get away from the organization, get down to the individual level. Unless it has done something within my own life, within my own heart, even beyond what's on my work and development plan, which there is an entry on there now. But it impacts you both here at P&G and outside in terms of the way you look at other individuals. To me, that's the lasting part of the session that we had.
Groups of individuals come together and have a sense of hopefulness who previously didn't have a sense of hopefulness. I think just by virtue of the design, the way it was designed, it gave people some new insights into themselves individually and into groups of individuals. But I just think it's given people a sense of hope that it's possible for change to occur.
In our model of psychology or of change, we believe, we assume that change, behavioral change involves emotional change, that in order to do something different, I have to have different feelings. So we, from that perspective, we said if you want behavior change, then we have to teach people how to understand what they're feeling.
The perception was this is a numbers game. And the fact that we were able to, I think, move beyond that myth, so to speak, and truly engage folks was a real, I think, appreciation that we should give ourselves in that respect.
You have to appreciate the diversity of people who, even the people who don't appreciate it themselves. That's still their part, that's still part of who they are, that's still part of their own diversity. So it's really being able to reach out to those people and understanding what their needs are and what their feelings are. If that's the way they feel, then that's good. We can work with them, but at the same time, we do need to understand and respect their feelings as well. We discovered that what we really needed with them was just patience and understanding. We let them really contribute as they saw fit. Nobody was pushing them. Nobody was saying, you have to participate in this. And we found out that in doing so, they would sit back, they would watch, they would listen, they would learn. And maybe their minds weren't quite as open as we would have liked, but still there were things that sunk in, and they did end up responding to a few things and contributing a little bit. So I thought that was very good.
I think there was a lot of value, a tremendous amount of value in having the Visions consultants there. And then when you have the internal consultants, it was like, and you really understand what I'm going through, or you understand what I'm talking about. The ideas or the options that you give me, you've tried, or you know what hasn't worked. So that was the breakthrough for me, was really knowing that I had lived a lot of the experiences that the people in the group had, and they were accepting that I could really help them see other options that were realistic.
It was a very good, very nice, non-threatening environment to sit there and talk, do a little relationship building that could continue when you got back into the office. I didn't feel as hesitant about bringing up questions than I would have had we not gone together in that session.
I enjoyed it from two aspects. One, it gave me an opportunity to get to know more people in my organization, especially a lot of A&Ts who were in my group. That was particularly rewarding. And two, for the first time, I was starting to think about people in a different way than I did before. Think about men and women thinking differently and having different ways of going about business, how expressing themselves. And the other element was learning about the totally different cultural backgrounds of people here in this country as compared to what I was exposed to before. So it definitely heightened my awareness and my focus on people.
One of the other things that make us diverse is our spiritual background that we have. And as a Christian, I was able to express how that deals with who I am and how it relates to work. And it was a very open discussion. I found this really fascinating because often we leave that, for one reason or another, outside the discussion. But it's what you are way inside.
From a personal perspective, the diversity initiative was always, we said the right things, it was on this kind of a level, high level, that we seek to utilize the talents of all the folks on our teams and things like that. And that's, to me, the level of penetration that I heard. And it wasn't until our leadership, and in specific my immediate leadership particularly, said that this has to get to be penetrated a lot further than that. And in fact, the way it came close home to me was, as I developed my action plans, it just became obvious to me that I was not going to be able to achieve my action plan without, utilizing the customer service representative. So that's how the diversity on high became, specific to me.
The difference now is that what's trying to help make it last is we have something called a diversity action plan incorporated into your regular work and development plan. And you should have actions that are going to help you change your behaviors or come to understand somebody different. So I think that's the way we're trying to address that issue. And I think that it's the responsibility of management to push it down, but it's also the responsibility of everybody else to push it up, to make sure it's happening so it meets in the middle. So we can't wait for somebody else to do it. It won't last unless we do the work.
I saw the inclusion of the work and development plan as a part of the training as really a critical part of helping clarify individuals' action plans vis-a-vis diversity, and to clarify each individual to first get some understanding around, from the educational standpoint from the workshop, as well as clarify what each individual would do as an action plan coming out of the workshop. It's dynamic, and you can continue to update and make changes. To me, that's the real value of it, because it's a development document, and it shouldn't be something that's carved in stone, that's not fluid, and that's not dynamic. So it is a dynamic process.
I have specific things I'm working on. If I just took diversity as a big picture and tried to work on it, I would be out of my mind. So I know exactly what the things are that I'm working on, and I think that putting a focus on something, such a huge subject, it's been great.
A key difference, as I sort of alluded to before, was we wanted to actually make some use of diversity as opposed to just making people aware of diversity. This action plan was a part of what we call our work and development plan, which is the key that every employee has to have to not just monitor their progress, but actually to help their career goals.
In the work and development plan process, they want you to look at all the little things, not just the big picture, but the little things. What can I do as an individual with one-on-one relationships? What can I do with the people I interact with daily? Look at it at a smaller level, not just the big picture level. So I think the inclusion piece has really helped and brought it to an individual level for a lot of people that before said, This doesn't involve me.
We are very good in recognizing the good work that is done. We are not too good in talking about the opportunities in a straightforward, caring but honest way. And again, this is now a key piece of our diversity action plan for the region. We've staffed that effort, and we are going to, I'm sure, do a better job in letting people know where they exactly stand. I could give you very recent examples where people's expectations, what they think is going to happen for them in the future, are totally different from reality. And that's because we haven't been able to tell the truth. So I think work and development plans are a big opportunity for us.
If I have a good relationship with my boss and we're aligned on what my diversity action plan is, then we can talk about that and have a good discussion about that, knowing full well that there'll be some puts and some takes, and I'll learn a little bit more, and I'll go off and do some different things that may or may not be purely measurable, but we'll now be able to see intuitively that they're going to make progress.
We've got to learn from each other, and you might have something in yours that I've never thought about, and although it would only help me, and it would only help you to see my perspective maybe on what you're doing.
I think we need to encourage the organization to continue to build diversity and leadership into their individual work and development plans, and we're going to make sure from a leadership standpoint that it's there.
For us, it helps the HR group, I think, work better together and establish some norms for our group, giving and receiving feedback, sitting down when somebody does something you're not clear, sitting down, really asking them this is how I took it, but what did it really mean? And so that we can have a clear understanding. So I think for our group, it helped us to be able to work better.
People don't feel they can open up, or bosses don't feel they can openly talk. So that's an area, I believe, if we can do a better job in having better person-to-person relationships, will go a long way, and the results will come, of course, by themselves.
I can see more and more people are being braver about when they're interrupted, saying, "Excuse me, can I finish?" Or if that person doesn't call it out, then maybe someone else in the meeting will say, I think you should let them finish. So I think that has helped bring out a lot of ideas that would have never been heard.
I believe it was that notion of cooperative relationships that's probably helped the most. As I can think about the resources that I have being broadly available and resources of others being available to me, that notion of cooperative relationships really cuts through that. And it no longer is an issue where I feel like I'm competing with, and I no longer feel like I have to hoard or guard against.
In a number of cultures, to sit down at 10 o'clock because the meeting starts at 10 o'clock and get right to the heart of the purpose for being there is just not socially acceptable. People will ask, I think honestly, about how was your trip, how's the hotel, have you visited this country before, is there anything particular you'd like to see? And the tendency frequently is to think about that as, let's get this foolishness over with and get down to it. But in those contexts, it's not foolishness. That's the way it's done. It may take an hour, it may take a day.
I think the training legitimized the discussion of issues of race, issues of gender, and I think it helped. Because early on, prior to some of the training, it would be very difficult. It would be like pulling teeth to get into a discussion around an issue of race. People would drive it underground rather than even try and get at it. But I sense that people are struggling, trying very hard to address the issue.
I think I was able to help the women from the standpoint of realize you're a woman, and yes, there are some biases and some wrongs to you because you're a woman, but you also have to realize that you have privilege as a white. And so how can you be in kinship with the blacks because of some of the, of all the race groups, because of some of the victim part that you may have felt, but also how can you understand that you are part of the problem?
The impact on the bottom line is that the more people understand why each other behaves that way, the closer the relationships become. And I think here at Procter & Gamble, we truly believe that relationships are the way that work gets done. So the better the relationship, the better quality of work, the more efficient the work is, and the smoother it flows. And it will help regretted turnover because people will feel better about working here.
Diversity and multiculturalism is everywhere. And so you're just equipped, it's like you wear a diversity tool belt, so, so to speak, with, just different strategies and just different things you can use for yourself.
Everything doesn't have to be either or, there's a both and. For me was a big one, and I see that our whole team beginning to say it can be a both and, it can be a both and that's something that was not even in our vocabulary until you all showed up.
In the work group, the little changes like a broader base of people that now lead action plans related to diversity planning. The little changes that we took from the training, we realized we didn't have a really good way to check in with people. And so at the beginning of our biweekly meetings, we have what we call a check-in process. More from the personal side, what's happening with people individually. We adopted the stroke theory as our critique process at the end of the department meeting. And so we'll ask about regrets or resentments or strokes at the end of each meeting. And so those would look like little changes maybe, but as they then become part of our ongoing process, you realize how we do learn from each other and learn from an event.
The term that we used during the session was stroking. Being able to receive a compliment and acknowledge it, not dispute it. That was a term that we used freely down there, or that we used for a while down there. A lot of the models, principles, the isms that we discussed, how a person can be oppressed, how can we be internally oppressed. So I think, because, as with any training, you want to be able to reapply that. And part of that is now in our work environment, we're able to use the terms and reapply on a daily basis for our situation.
It makes it very difficult for a team to come to a consensus on a decision if you can't get past all the differences that each member has. And once you address those differences and you understand them, it makes it so much easier for you as a team to get into a meeting and talk about things and make decisions and come to a consensus than before you might have spent 5 hours on something and never really resolved it. And people might have left angry or upset because it really didn't meet their needs. Where now everybody can leave with the feeling that, okay, I addressed my differences and they can kind of collaborate them all to make a better decision.
We had some real conversation with the leadership, and I think that is one of the best things that came out of this. Every time I attend one, I can see that people are really learning and growing and being able to express themselves in these meetings about what they don't understand or what they do understand or what things are not working and ideas to help make these things work. And I think that's one of the best things because it lets me know that it wasn't just an event, which is a one-time happening. It was really an initiative to get something started that was going to be the impetus for something to just go on, and I like that.
The other thing that was real empowering for me was the conversation around privilege and how that has impacted my life and how I've seen it hurt people of color, women in the organization, where they haven't had some privilege that I've had. So that's been good for me in terms of sensitivity.
For me, it was discovering that what I believed to be helpful was actually dysfunctional rescuing of as I said, women and African Americans. And the way it might play out is someone would have some work to do or something that they were trying to accomplish, and I would find myself in the spirit of trying to help them. I would actually find what I was really doing was trying to control, was trying to make sure that everything came off without a hitch, which really related back to somewhat to my upbringing. Again, in a dysfunctional home, you don't want any other problems, and you learn to control and keep things on an even keel and smooth. And what I discovered is that the assumption, I was making several assumptions, but one big assumption I was making, particularly as it related to women and African Americans, was that somehow they were not going to be capable of getting whatever the work that was needed to be done. They weren't going to be capable of getting it done without my help. And of course that would then spill over to additional problems for me. And And so that was kind of the learning generally, and I remember sitting in the session and just realizing that and having a feeling of real sadness that here I was, I had been with Procter & Gamble 17, 18 years, a lot of experience managing people, a lot of experience managing women and African Americans, and came to realize that behavior, what it was doing and had probably done to many, many people during the course of my career, and just feeling real sadness about that, and feeling like, how could I have missed that, for so long?
Anytime you have a process that removes barriers from people relating to each other, if they're working in a team environment, are you impacting the work? As you know, our work's accomplished through teams. And I think many of if you can, in the process of the training, it set up ways of helping people break down barriers between themselves, and thereby I think it's impacted in a very positive way the organization.
We were able to chip away at the problems and really get to the core needs that we had to deal with, and that in itself was very, very successful. Personally, for me, being able to go through the different sessions, each time I attend, I'd learn something new about myself, new about my own personal identity. And as a result, at the end, I feel very proud of what the unique differences that I can bring to the organization. Many times you try to conform into an organization, into its norms, its habits, and its cultures. Now, actually understanding myself and the things that I'm different from others, my peers, I now know that I need to balance that. And for me, that's been very, very helpful, enriching.
It seems very different now to be able to talk about the richness of the backgrounds and the different culture that we have, and less about the policing action almost. It's less about being so careful because we may be confronted.
It's just that whole modeling aspect that says a lot of people don't know what it looks like. And here, let us help you.
It can be, like I said, any level of the organization, anybody, just as long as you can see consistent leadership in diversity.
It's made it a lot easier for me in particular to say, I can go to my manager and address a problem. And I've noticed within Group 6 that the managers I have addressed about it have been really receptive to the feedback that I've given.
Too much in the past, I felt it was my unique responsibility to train people, and that didn't leverage the diversity and the wonderful diversity of experiences and skills everybody had. So we were able to do an assessment of everybody's functional backgrounds and their skills and experiences, and have them choose those areas where they felt most highly skilled, and they really backed it up in one of our meetings with, and here's the accomplishments I've had with the company, and they generally sprang from leveraging those strengths. And we put together and documented some work processes. Number one, to onboard people in the organization, kind of do a skill assessment against the work and against their background, and then really have them walk through here's my business need, who else in the organization can support that need, who else has the background, the strengths, and so on. And it's really been wonderful for the organization.
I think there's a larger comfort level from a lot of people that says, the company really supports this, and I really need to make my effort now and start doing it too.
One thing that I really feel strongly about is that we meaning everyone in the world, has in common is pain. We know what pain feels like. We know what discrimination feels like. It may be due to our weight, it may be due to our color, it may be due to our sexual orientation, it may be due to a handicap, but we know what that pain feels like. And so if we can build on how we're affected by that pain and how we can help each other and ourselves and our communities work through that pain, I think we can come together and still appreciate our differences, because my pain isn't the same as yours, isn't the same as yours. But since we all know what that feels like, I think that helps us to understand how we don't want to do that to someone else.
I learned that diversity is not a start-stop process, it is a journey, and the more we work at it, the better we become as an organization and the better I become as an individual. So it's a continuous process, and it's something that we have to keep working at.
It's clear it's a journey, and there are detours, and some of these detours lead to bumpy roads. Best intentions sometimes aren't necessarily the right intentions.
With the subject of race or gender or sexual preferences or what have you, people feel that they don't have an issue with it, and that's simply because they don't talk about it. Most people wouldn't talk about other races around other people, except like I would talk to Sydney here if I had a problem with race, but I wouldn't necessarily bring it to the forefront. And that doesn't mean that the problem is taken care of, it just means that we're internalizing the situation as opposed to bringing it out of the vacuum.
I was in a social environment, knew someone socially, didn't work directly with this person, and he says to me, so what does that women's support group do anyhow? It was a great opportunity for me to say, as a matter of fact, let me just quickly run to my laptop and print up that action plan and tell you what our work group does, and this is how we're doing it, and this is how it measures. I mean, his eyes just bugged out of his head. Wow, you do real work. Wow, didn't realize that that was something that the women's group took on and worked with the HPT for goals of the organization.
A lot of this is about changing and growing personally, simply because the environment has changed, the business situation has changed, the organizational structure has changed. But changing, I mean, we almost all of the people in the room are, veterans, at least in my organization, and they're there because they've been successful. So all of a sudden I got to change, and that's hard.
We are now, since I think about a year and a half or two, looking at diversity like we look at any other key strategy. We are measuring it. We have periodic reviews of our results. We identify gaps and action plans. And on a regional level in my leadership team, when we go through our quarterly reviews, diversity is like the other areas. So this is serious. And I think this has been key to make continued progress, to not keep it totally as a soft area, but to get it into the measurable, try to get it into the measurable area, although it is not easy. And that ties directly to the reward process, because if you miss all your goals all the time, then you have a problem.
I think that this kind of work, the kind of discussions that need to occur, have got to be occurring at leadership teams. I'm talking directors and vice president leadership teams who say that they know what we're talking about, but I'm not sure that they really do. We still don't have what I believe to be the right utilization in our hierarchy. And even if we were to put people there, I think there'd be a lot of suffering going on because I don't know that those individuals are really ready for the conflicts and the issues that would come up just by people being different.
How am I able to articulate a vision where everybody sees I benefit from diversity? The system will work better for me because, the country as a whole, you pick up the newspaper and diversity, if you will, is equated with affirmative action under attack by the Supreme Courts.
I clearly was saddened, if I could use the feeling, family, around our inability as an organization to deal with issues of sexual orientation. That's still a real lightning rod for many people in our organization. And so we have a long way to go with regard to dealing with issues of sexual orientation in our organization. So that's a challenge.
If there are pieces of the company's commitment to valuing and utilizing diversity in all aspects of its organization, and if I have a personal level belief that differs or of a different value system, what's going to happen to me?
The white male label in and of itself is a very difficult one at the outset. Once again, it's a label. Okay. And the label is one of I've just been tossed into a big bowl and I'm assumed to be the same as everybody else in that bowl, and in fact, in the diversity effort, probably assumed to be guilty in that. And that's an uncomfortable feeling, and one that while everybody goes through that when they move into new organizations, that's one that I found myself, every time I've changed an assignment, there's that immediate label.
The label to me, it makes me mad.
Just because, us three up here today, we're three white males, but we're totally different. And we bring different perspective to the organization and different results.
The questions you ask around the diversity effort are first interpreted in a very critical way versus asking for clarity. The first assumption is that you are against it.
Okay, so you're saying just as a white male asking?
It's the first assumption is he doesn't like that, okay? Versus trying to understand better and say maybe there is a diverse point of view. It feels like, we're talking about feelings, I believe.
Oh, yes. And
it feels like, okay, this is a white male, 6'2", and at one time blonde and blue eyes, so it's natural, what else would he think? And in some cases that may be true, and I may be guilty of that, if you want to talk about guilt in this respect, but in many cases it isn't. And it hurts if you're being put into a corner, without somebody trying to really understand where you're coming from.
In the Midwest, we have a Women in Sales network, and I really would like to be part of that organization. I really feel that a lot of the issues that they talk are women's issues. They aren't necessarily level issues. Unfortunately, they kind of look at them as leveling issues and really don't ask us to be a part of that. And I really feel that that would be really beneficial to our group. And anything that I can take away, too, I can always bring back to my group. And, like Amy has done for us with the group that she's been involved in. But I really do think that work and family balance and issues like that are really discussed in a lot of the women's groups. Would be really nice to be part of those issues, part of that discussion.
I was in a sales A&T meeting. I was the only product supply person, and they were talking about roles and how they needed to write their own role description. And I said, well, hey, we've already done that. Would you like a copy? No one wanted it. I thought, that's kind of odd. Here I've already done this work. Aren't we searching and reapplying here? But no one was very interested.
Everyone has some area that they can bring leadership to the team with, and just giving each other the support. And with team building, we need to learn how to step back and let others step in and take over. So that just building on that would be a part of what the next step should be.
There's just an aura that if I say the wrong thing or if it's said slightly out of context, the soundbite kind of mentality that it will be perceived wrong, and then all of a sudden I will be looked upon differently, which I don't want to, I feel much better when I'm in an environment where, see me in a larger context, and, we'll show you who I am.
A lot of times I think people come together seeking what we have in common. You and I do this, I think it's important. I think I've just started realizing, well, what do you do different, And that's the kind of things that I'd like to see more and more people do, is instead of coming together and say, how are we the same? Tell me, how are we different?
In our training sessions, we had talked about the notion of the melting pot. And in coming to P&G and just functioning as an African American in society, I was always feeling like I was supposed to try to be more similar to everyone else, and feeling still that I was different. I was feeling that was not okay. So out of the training session, one of the first things I realized was for me to feel comfortable or to feel okay about the difference that I had, that, it's about building an awareness of the benefit that my difference brings to the situation. And it was like, it was just enlightening for me to recognize that I'm bringing a benefit to the situation.
I did see some breakthrough on that part around people understanding how working together better creates better results, creates better ideas being applied, makes for more robust, efficient organizations. And being a part of so many sessions, I really saw people make that connection. And so for me, that was another powerful piece.
One thing about the business benefit is that we see at Governor's Hill that diversity is part of the business, and we have very rigorously tracked demographics and utilization retention, not just for managers, but for A&Ts. I think that's been a first. And we see that as an important result area as cost and customer service. It's been very clear, I think, for everyone that had we not looked very hard and done a lot of work in organization capability and diversity, we wouldn't have saved $5 million in order management costs or improved productivity 30% in order management. So there's a good connection there. I think people are seeing that.
We're operating today with over 30% less people than we were 2 years ago. Now, the business has grown significantly in those same 2 years. Maybe not by 30%, but it's grown in a healthy way. So that tells you that in order for us to even maintain, we all need to work and deliver at a higher level and take on more responsibilities and reach out for more and empowering things to do. And all I'll say is that we're finishing up a year, 95, 96, where not only did we exceed our stretch goals in total delivered cost, logistics delivered cost, we set an all-time record in our perfect orders to our customers at 86%. That exceeded goal. We turned back to the company over $7.5 million in administrative expense, and we couldn't do that without an empowered organization at all levels.
I want to touch on those folks that have been with the company for 30 years. I think that's another area where we've got a number of people who bring a ton of experience to the organization. As we've continued to, quote, downsize and doing more with less, it's very critical to me that we don't lose the expertise that many of those people bring to the organization.
My sense is that there's been an enlightenment around how we're underutilizing the A&Ts in our organization, and a lot of managers are looking for ways to include A&Ts more, so they're thankful about having that brought to their attention. And I see less dysfunctional rescuing of people, like thinking of the things that the A&T must probably need to be successful, and I think that is seen as progress.
It's becoming diversity for business sake. So it's talked about in a different way. It's thought about in a different way. And of course, it's led to a much more diverse group of people in important leadership positions within the organization. It's resulted in specific action plans and measures, just like any other business priority. So it's not offline or off to the side. It's something we're focused on and we're treating like any other business.
You've got to spread the success stories. People will very gladly search and reapply in our organization, and the problems of almost any organization are symptomatic of problems of the larger organization. So this is good, but I think on a macro level, we really have to take a look at the issues that all of us are facing in terms of, horizontal organizations, multifunctional teams, much broader spans, and understand that those organizational strategies require diversity interventions to make those organizational strategies. So I think we need to work harder at seeing the direct links of diversity to multifunctional teams, horizontal process teams, flat organizations.
The diversity issues that we have in the United States or North America are not perceived to be issues and problems in many parts of the world. And I think that's because on the issue, we're a lot further ahead. It will be an issue sooner or later in these other cultures. We were talking earlier, we saw an article recently that sexual harassment in Japan is perceived to be an issue by something less than 10% of the population, and that number would have been even lower yet hadn't it been for the recent problem in the United States with a Japanese-owned company. So these issues will come up sooner or later at a different pace.
We are a global company, and if we are truly to be a world leader in this industry, we need to encompass everyone's ideas from different cultures, backgrounds, in order to make this company a success.
We've been working at this for a long time. We've made progress, but it's still, to reach everyone and to get everyone involved, it's still a long process.
We have real retention issues, and which is terribly wasteful. we hire people and then we lose them. Just imagine how much energy goes into recruiting and training, and then we can't retain the people. That's something we are better understanding and are working on the analysis, and we'll have to fix.
We also have a diversity-specific vision for Governor's Hill, which looks at valuing diversity, utilizing differences, valuing differences.
Right now, I think my biggest concern is to make sure that, number one, we're breaking down barriers between A&Ts and management. As we continue to reduce our management workforce, we really need to empower and get everything we can out of every single individual in the organization, and we're working real hard to eliminate the classism that has existed in our organization for years. So there's a lot of interventions like that. It's not something that you work on one day and you don't the next.
It has to start with the bosses that need to create a climate where a dissenting point of view is valued.
Okay.
That's diversity. And you read in the literature that the companies of the future will be more successful, are companies that are better in encouraging dissenting views. Let's talk about the things that sometimes keep you awake at night. What are your problems?
So giving permission to...
Yeah, and I tell you, the organization is really responding well, and we still have a way to go, of course, but I'm really pleased that we're changing the culture here and the climate, and I do hope it will result in more openness, because if you ask for problems, you'll hear about problems. This is a cultural difference. In where I come from, the word problem has sometimes a positive connotation and not a negative one. So talking about problems is great. It's your life.
This is a journey. The 2 days they weren't done, in a year they won't be done, in 2 years they won't be done. And so what is that next step for each individual, for each group, to continue their learning? There are always going to be new people coming in and out of the organization, so how do they continue to be aware of what's going on and continue to grow and be excited about growing and learning about each other? I think that's the biggest challenge that we have just overall as a corporation.
This program needs to continue to live and prosper in this organization, and I think Bill and I and the rest of the leadership team have a responsibility to make sure that happens, but so do all of our employees. Every one of us walked out of there with a diversity action plan, and once that diversity action plan is complete, I would expect that a new one be developed. And I think we need to make sure and commit to ourselves personally and as an organization that we will sustain this effort.